Welcome to Behind the Binary, the podcast that introduces you to the fascinating people, technology, and tools driving the world of reverse engineering. I'm your host, Josh Stroschein, a reverse engineer at the Flare team at Google. In this episode, we're joined by Thomas Roccia, a security researcher at Microsoft. Thomas discusses the growth of the Unprotected Project, how AI is changing security research, and the impact of data visualizations for conveying technical information. Thomas offers a unique perspective on the intersection of open source collaboration, artificial intelligence, and effective communication in the cybersecurity field. Get ready for an insightful conversation that will shed light on the hidden layers of technology. All right. Well, welcome, Thomas, to the podcast. It's really great that you're here and joining me today to talk about, I think, a lot of really interesting topics to include things like generative AI, your background in cybersecurity, reverse engineering, the Unprotected Project, 100 Days of Yara. So we better get started. Before we get into those topics, though, would you mind spending a few minutes here just telling us a little bit about yourself, what got you into cybersecurity to reverse engineering and threat intelligence, and I guess what keeps you here since you've been in the field now for quite some time?
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation, Josh. I'm really glad to be here today. So a little bit about me. So my name is Thomas Roccia. I'm a senior security researcher and I'm currently working at Microsoft. I live in Australia, but I'm French. So I moved to Australia 3 years ago. And about my career, so before working for Microsoft, I was working for McAfee as a threat intelligence analyst and malware reverser as well. So I spent 6 years at McAfee doing incident response, traveling the world for customers and so on. And before that, I had some different experience in France for into the bank industry, but also the public industry as well. Different kind of roles such as security engineering, security administration as well, network engineering, and so on. And yeah, I've been working in the security industry for the past almost 15 years right now. So it's been a while. And my background is kind of, I would say, usual. Like I've been to an engineering school in France with an a master degree in IT security. Back in the day, it was actually one of the first master degrees in France about cybersecurity. So nothing related to what I'm currently doing today, but it was like the first degrees at the time. So yeah, this is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm really involved as well into the cybersecurity community. Really passionate about the community, the work we are doing for helping different people as well. And yeah, right now my work is more focused on generative AI and how to practically apply it for threat intelligence and malware analysis. But my background is mainly in threat intel and reverse engineering.
Okay. Yeah. So today, I know this episode will be released not particularly coinciding with today, but today happens to be the 31st anniversary that Doom was released, which always takes me back because I'm of that vintage that Doom was one of those seminal games, and it kind of opened the door for me to start modding and like modding on a PC, and it was really cool. Where did you get started with computers and reversing and security? Like what drew you to going to school and getting into that master's degree, or maybe engineering as an undergrad? I guess I didn't quite catch that if that was the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting question. So pretty early, we got a computer at home because my father is a programmer actually, and I think I got the interest pretty early because we get that computer with some of the games. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Adibu. Adibu was a famous game in the 90s for education purpose, and it was like very colorful and super funny game when you are a kid. And I think it was probably one of the first time I've been able to touch a computer at the time. And then growing up, I just live in the age where we were using MSN and chatting with all your friends. And there is also a funny story. Like I'm not sure if you remember during the MSN time, we used to send some jokes through MSN, such as like you remember the whiz, like something you send and it was whizzing your screen or something like that,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and all the small program joke programs as well we send. And I remember one day a friend of mine sent me something and it completely crashed the computer. But at the time I didn't know what happened, like, and
Mhm.
it was a new computer, like my mother just bought this new computer at home. And my friend sent me this piece of code that crashed the family computer, and I was devastated, because it was expensive at the time.
Right.
What is going on with this small program? So I started again the computer, and then I started to check the small program to understand what it was. And it was I think it was like a small piece of code for Visual Basic or something like that, like
Mhm.
a very piece of script, very easy stuff to analyze today. But when I was 10 years old, it was another story. So I just tried to understand what happened here, and it probably caught my interest into computers. So growing up, I started to learn a little bit more about programming, and then after high school, I went to the university to learn more about computer science. And I actually did my studies in a sandwich course, working and studying in the same time. So I was
Mm,
working
mhm.
in a company, and studying during the night or during the during some weeks of the month. And yeah, just starting to get more interest about hacking and what you can do with programming and a computer. And so I decided to continue to an engineering school, doing a master degree with an IT security degree. And yeah, that's how I get the interest in computer science, I guess. And growing up, I realized that it was more like a field for a lot of company at the time was hiring people with computer science background. So I just started to realize that it was maybe like a good career to do. And I was still interested into the field as well, just to understand how it works. And reverse engineering was actually, when we talk about reverse engineering, we must of all talk about analyzing piece of code, but really it's all about understanding something. Like when it could be a piece of engineering such as a mouse or something like that, and then just
Mhm.
putting it apart and understanding how it works inside. This is reverse engineering as well. And I think I was
Mhm.
doing that since a while, because when I was kid, I was just crashing the toys that I had just to understand how it was working inside. So pretty much like that, yes.
I consider parenting an exercise in reverse engineering,
Yes.
trying to figure out how the little humans
Exactly.
work. Yes, and I also had a similar experience. I don't remember now exactly when, but AOL was big,
Mm,
and we used to get the CDs and the floppy disks in the mail. And I think it's probably I remember getting online very early in life, Prodigy or something, and but AOL was up there, and
right.
they had bots or these little utilities that you could download and kick people off the computer and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's that was also something that piqued my curiosity real early on. Yeah, and it's it's great that the educational system started to provide more formal opportunities, because I think a lot of folks they have this interest early on, especially back when computers weren't quite as prevalent. We didn't have them in our pockets just ready to go. Um, and if you didn't know people that were in really security and hacking and reversing, it was a little bit
Yeah.
intimidating to understand
Yes.
it and get into it. And so,
Absolutely.
it's great that universities and schools and clubs and programs and all of the things out there
Yeah.
were came around to help sort of guide folks into the field. And of course now it's turned into this mature
Yes.
money making monster.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's
So
actually a really good point, because back in the day, it wasn't like today. Like today, we have a lot of online training or YouTube such as
mhm,
yours. It's a fantastic resource for learning about reverse engineering. But when you think about it, like 10 to 15 years ago, it wasn't the same. And if you wanted to learn about reverse engineering, then it was very complicated. And the industry as well was a bit different, because it wasn't like today. Today, I think most of the people are welcoming the newcomers into the industry. But 10 to 15 years ago, it wasn't like that. You had to learn by yourself, and just asking to someone wasn't a thing, really. Like it was, but you know RTFM, like we used to say, like, you know.
I was
But
just
yeah,
thinking that. Yep, yep.
yeah,
I was just thinking that. That's kind of the mantra of the time. It was like,
yes,
you want help, go read the manual and come
exactly.
back to me once you have a better framed question. Um, which I guess for me, it was part of what motivated me is to prove to not only myself that I could do it, but to others.
Yes,
But as you mentioned, that it can also be very discouraging, and so
yes,
but I think a lot of that has changed, as you said. It's it's still challenging, but it's more accessible to try to
yeah,
get into the
absolutely.
field.
And I don't think it was a bad thing, actually, the RTFM thing, because
No.
it forged your mindset and the way you are learning, and you were learning. Today it's just more easy to access to the information,
Hmm.
but you don't have this exercise that we used to do before, because looking for or searching for the information by yourself was like really part of the training, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely can say it helped, and it
Yes,
was. I mean, it developed the right kind of mindset, and yeah, and I don't mean it as a negative.
yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
just that for some folks, that can become a barrier because they just.
exactly.
But yeah, the resourcefulness, it created resourcefulness, and ultimately the knowledge lies in those manuals and in that documentation. And if you understand that, then boy, you really understand the thing it is that you're trying to reverse engineer.
100%, yeah.
If you can find the manuals anyway. Of course, not everything has documentation and stuff that was easily available, but well, so okay, so maybe we'll shift gears a little bit. One of those projects, one of your efforts that I know has become quite visible is the 100 Days of Yara. And Yara is, if nothing more than an opportunity to take some reverse engineering activity or so, and turn it or codify it into some concrete piece of pattern matching. So, can you tell us a little bit about 100 Days of Yara? Kind of the history of the what would you call it? I don't know, project maybe, and just sort of kind of where it came from and where it's at and where you see it going in the coming years.
So it came from Greg. Greg, I don't know how to pronounce his name each time. Like Greg listening from
Yep, yep,
Proofpoint, I believe. Yeah, he's working at Proofpoint, and he actually created the initiative maybe 4 years ago or something like that. Then there is also Steve Miller from Mandiant. He's working at
yep,
Mandiant right now. He was
yep.
working for Microsoft before, and I think both of them started this initiative some times ago, and it was originally uh, the model is from the 100 days of coding. So the 100 days of coding is basically learning programming stuff every day, or creating a piece of code every day during 100 days. So the concept is similar with the 100 days of Yara, and it's just about like a community project where everyone can work together on Yara, because Yara is a fantastic tool if you are a malware researcher, because you can understand a little bit more how to track some specific piece of a malware. And yeah, it just came out as a community project just to learn more about Yara and to build something around this. So it's every year at the beginning of the year. So I think it makes it a great challenge for the beginning of the year, and to learn more about Yara. And as usual, uh, we are still looking for more people to contribute to the initiative, because it's always great to see all the community, and you always learn also something new about Yara, even if you are working with it since like 10 years. You With
Mhm.
this kind of initiative, there is always something new to learn about, so it's pretty cool. And this year is actually more interesting, because we have the Yara X, the latest released, and so I think there is more to uncover with this new version of Yara.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that Yara X. Last I checked, it's still beta, but it's quickly marching its way, I think, to I guess a primary release. I know VirusTotal just announced that
Yes.
it's driving more and more of the internal detection processes with VirusTotal, which has got to be just massive. So, have you started working with Yara X much? Are you at that point where you're leaning into it more and more, or is there maybe still hesitation until it's reached that initial stable release? What would it be, like a 1.0 or something?
Yes, I did actually. I did some work, not recently, but I think it was maybe during the 100 days of Yara. Like, I did a look about Yara X and just compiling the project and play because it's written in Rust. So I'm not super familiar with Rust. So it was also like a good way for me to understand the environment, how to compile a project, and so on. But I didn't do so much experiment. I'm looking forward to spend a little bit more time with Yara X actually, and there is also some ongoing work with the Unprotect project. So I think we're going to talk about it later. But basically, the Unprotect project right now has a Yara scanner in the backend, and we are thinking to implement the latest Yara X version as well directly into the backend. So right now, I didn't spend too much time on it, but I'm looking forward to have more time during the 100 days of Yara, maybe to work more on it.
I hate to out myself as a 100 days of Yara noob, but usually when I see that it's running, it's because there are posts on social media, and so do you have suggestions or recommendations for like how to prepare yourself if you want to participate and get the most out of it? And do you, for example, do you sit down in advance and try to put together a list of these are the things I'm going to do each day, or what would you recommend to maximize
Abs-
time? And are there other ways to get involved? Is it just you said you're always looking for help? Like what might that entail for anyone who's interested that wants to go beyond just the informal participation?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So I'm always someone like someone that try to to plan a little bit to something that I will do. So for the 100 days of Yara, maybe a good thing would be to create a list of what kind of things you want to learn about. And for example, if it's Yara X, like
Hmm.
a basic plan would be like day one how to compile the project, day two how to build the could be also like what are the difference, just to highlight the difference between the previous Yara version and Yara X, and then pick a new sample and just create the Yara rule. So it's really about like what you want to learn and what you want to do. If you want to have like a maybe like a broader impact to the community, for the Unprotect project, we are hosting Yara rules for uh, detection of the evasion techniques of a malware, and we are
Hmm.
always looking for new contributor. So participating to the Unprotect project as well could be a good one, but really there is no like it's all about what you want to learn and what you want to do actually.
Okay. Yeah, I have some ideas myself for the 100 days
Yeah.
of Yara, and I hope it doesn't turn out to be like my efforts to learn a second language, in which I always start out strong, and then by day 6, I'm like, I nobody got time for this. But so we'll see. So hopefully, I'll have some contributions myself. The Unprotect project has now come up a couple times, so we should probably talk a little bit about that, and so that way everyone can understand, especially anyone who's not familiar, what is the Unprotect project, and maybe give us a little history about how that started and where you also
Sure.
see that going.
Sure. So the Unprotect project is actually an interesting story. So I was working for McAfee before, and in 2015, I was doing incident response for customers. So I used to travel for big incident or outbreak or ransomware breach,
Mhm.
anything. And most of the time, since I was working for McAfee, we're using McAfee. And most of the time, they said, okay, what's going on? Why the antivirus didn't catch the sample? Or why the latest sandbox that I bought, I don't know, I don't know how much, didn't analyze correctly this piece of sample and so on. So I started to realize that it wasn't really about the product itself, but it was more about the configuration and the techniques a malware could use to just bypass everything and avoid the detection and the analysis. So I started the Unprotect project actually as an initiative to educate customers about the techniques used by malware to circumvent the protection in place and avoid the analysis and so on. So at first it was a simple Excel sheet with all the list, And then I wanted to build like a kind of a classification because at the time the MITRE attack defense evasion section wasn't what it is today, and it was not really there was there was there were a gap, I mean, between the defense evasion and the current state of the art of malware evasion techniques. So I just wanted to fill this gap and to contribute to the community. And I think also it was a good way for me to learn more about all the detection mechanism used by malware. So I built this, and then my friend Jean-Pierre Le Sueur, which he joined me like I think 1 year later or 2 years later, and then we started to build something a little bit more. At first, it was a wiki, and then we started to to build like a new web interface, a new website with all the techniques, and something which was a bit more a bit more cool for the people to learn about and to get everything. So yeah, and from the past 10 years we added new functionality. So at first it was just a database, then we added the Yara rules for each of the techniques, and then we added the Kappa rules, and then we added the Sigma rules as well when it is available, and then we added the code snippets so everyone can go there and look for specific techniques, learn more about the techniques itself, and try the piece of code as well for detection mechanisms, but also for red team people. I also have a lot of people coming to me like which are using the Unprotect project for red teaming exercise as well. So it's quite interesting to see that. And then recently we added the latest feature, which is the Unprotect scanner, which is actually a Yara scanner. But it's quite useful because right now you can upload a sample, and if there is a match for specific techniques, then you can go to the techniques itself and you can see the latest samples that are matching for this technique. So it's quite useful. It's quite new. We are still it's still a work in progress actually, because there is a lot of things to improve and to add and to incorporate as well. But basically, it is released. It's completely free because we want to have the Unprotect project free for the community, and this is why also it takes time, because we are working during the weekend and the late nights as well. But yeah, it's like my baby project, and it grew up along the way, and a lot of contributor as well. I think we have more than 20 contributor actually right now, which is amazing. And yeah, this is the Unprotect project.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's definitely one of those projects that it comes up more like organically on my radar more and more frequently. Say, I'm prepping to make a course or do a video, or I'm looking at some sample, which is usually the root of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Searching for certain byte sequences or instructions or something, and this is becoming a really great resource,
Thank
and
you.
it looks like a great place to contribute. Number of things kind of jump into my head. One of the first, I was just curious with the different rules. I used to work for the OISF, which is the foundation that supports
Yes.
Circata. And there's a long story there, so I won't go into all the details, but there was a close relationship with the folks that started Circata and Emerging Threats, which provided the initial rule set. And then they were acquired by Proofpoint. That'll probably be a podcast someday, because I think that's an interesting story that also should be told. But so if you want to like submit rules for Circata to Emerging Threats Open right now, they actually go through the Emerging Threats team and they get reviewed and vetted, and then you get some feedback and or the rule goes into production because it deploys out to customers. Is it similar here? Do you have a process of vetting signatures that are submitted
Yes.
from folks, and then it's kind of a way that they can get training, isn't it? Because you can get
Yeah,
feedback about your rules if they're not good. So okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
So so
So how does that work?
So we are doing it in a best effort, obviously, because it takes a lot of time, especially when sometimes we get like maybe 10 contribution at the time. So it's really hard to spend time. But basically, we are trying to, if the contribution. So you just have to go for contributing. You just have to go to the repository, and it's basically a pull request. So there is all the guidelines. You can contribute for improving a description, adding a techniques, adding a piece of code, adding detection rules. So it's really up to you. And depending of what you are sending, we always try to be careful and to check the submission, whether it is the description. So we are looking for the description itself, try to understand if it's something we know, if there is some additional documentation as well. Then if there is a piece of code, we always try to reproduce the code, to compile it, or to execute if it's a Python code or anything else, and try to check it as well. And if it's Yara rules, for example, then we will try the Yara rule as well, just to avoid any massive false positive. So it's a bit manual, the process right now. And yeah, of course, it takes a lot of time, so we are trying to be very careful, because it's also for the community. So we try to have something curated, but of course, like, since it's a best effort project, and we are doing it during the weekend and during our spare time, it's sometimes it can be a bit tricky. So that's why, if you send something and we do not review it, like if it's something very complicated to check and to validate, then we can take a bit more time to approve the PR. So if it's something very easy, then it can be very quick. And yeah, I forget to say, for our contributor, we also have like contributor coins. So it's so if you are like a really good contributor, we send you a Unprotect coin. And yeah, it's just to say thank you, and to be part of the community as well.
Yeah, well, that's really cool and really thoughtful. I know a lot of folks that are contributing to these and creating projects like you're doing, contributing to them, don't do it for the recognition, but I know the recognition always is much appreciated, or I
Yes.
think for most people it is. Um,
And there is
so
something more, actually. If you contribute to the project, then you become a contributor. So you have your dedicated page to the Unprotect project, where you can see all your contributions. So it's also like a good showcase, if if
mhm.
you want to show that during an interview or something like that. You can say, oh, look, I'm also a contributor to the Unprotect project, and then you have your page with all your contribution, piece of code, detections, and so on. So it's pretty cool.
It just always I don't know, it's humbling and sort of inspiring when you realize how much of our field is driven by open source efforts,
Yes.
the technology, the projects, the information and education sharing, knowledge sharing. It's just really quite amazing, and this certainly is a project that fits that that category that I can say. How long have you been? Has this project been around? I didn't catch the like if there was a rough time frame.
So it came out in 2015, actually, at the
Okay.
BotConf conference in France. So the
Ah,
BotConf is
yeah. Yep. Yep.
it's a famous security conference about botnet fighting in France, organized by law enforcement. And I presented the first time the Unprotect project at this conference in 2015.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Okay. So it's got some legs underneath it,
Yes.
and looks like it's really growing and maturing really nicely. You said Yara and Sigma.
Yes.
Um, Maybe I haven't reflected on this enough, but would there be room for things like IDS signatures? And the first use case that comes to my mind, and I can't think of a lot, but the first one that comes to mind is a lot of commodity malware checks free GeoIP databases, and so
Yeah.
you'll see that distinct network request to get that GeoIP information that is detectable in a like a suricata rule. So is room for that, or was it intentionally not put into the project because it just doesn't fall in the scope?
So it's a good question. Like the short answer will be yes. The real answer will be it's complicated, because there is already a lot of work to do. And
Yeah.
we just added also the capability of adding techniques for Linux samples and macOS
Mm,
samples as well. So I think right now our goal is mainly to capitalize on what we already have, and to improve the current database with all the data, because there is plenty of stuff to improve,
Hmm.
and also creating the Yara rule, Sigma and Kappa. It's also a lot of time. So I think right now something which will be, I don't think there is always like a new thing to add and new stuff to incorporate. So I would say yes, because in the future it would be amazing to have that kind of place where you can put all your detection mechanism for malware evasion in the single place. But right now, I think there is a little bit more work to do for the rest, like improving the Yara database, the Sigma database as well. Also, some
Hmm.
of the description need to be refined as well. There is every day, pretty much every day, there is a new evasion mechanism, or
Hmm.
antivirus evasion and so on. And we really want to classify that into the project, but it's a lot of work. So I think right now, which is the more important, is to grow up the current database rather than adding more work, because it's actually a great idea to incorporate the IDS and IPS detections, but it would be like adding more work on top of all the work that we already need to do, actually. But yeah, but thank you very
Yeah.
much for that. Like, I mean, like, we're still open for more contribution. Like, if you want, like, we're really happy to have you in the project as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 It's definitely crossed my mind. I I think I've also have this tendency, as a lot in the field of, it's hard for me. I'm infinitely curious, and sometimes it's hard for me to say no. And so
Yeah,
I find myself, taking
same.
on projects, going like excited to get involved, and then I realize, kind of like learning a language. 5 days later, I'm like, I really don't have time for this. So what was I doing? But yeah, I have definitely been poking around, and just seeing opportunities, as I hope others that are listening will do the same, opportunities to help and contribute, because it's easy to sit kind of on the sidelines here and say, well, you could do this, or
Yes,
when there's so much work to do. So but great work.
thank you.
So I think one other area, that we could talk about, we don't have to shift away from Unprotect, at this point, the Unprotect project, but I see maybe a potential overlap is just talking about kind of the state of LLMs and generative AI. I know that's an area that you're focused on right now. I guess maybe the transition could be: is there any opportunity to use that to help with Unprotect? And then maybe once we talk about that, we could just talk a little bit more about like where your current interest lies. Where are you? Like where are the applications that you can talk about with that technology?
Right. I think that's a really good question, and also for our industry to reflect on it. Like, so there is a lot of hype around generative AI and LLMs, especially because, like, everyone is talking about it, and I'm not really interested about the hype itself, but more about how I like the technology. I'm just a security enthusiast, and also a tech enthusiast. So when there is a new technology, I'm always like I don't know, like, I just get the interest, and something that I mostly do is when there is something that interests me, I always try to connect it with my core expertise, such as threat intel or malware analysis. So when LLMs really became a thing, because LLMs are here since a while, but when it really became something interesting to explore and to exploit, I just, try to understand how I can practically apply LLMs and generative AI for my work, and how I can do it for threat intelligence or malware analysis. So I just started to explore a little bit more about it, and learn more about the technology itself, what I can practically do, rather than thinking about the, because a lot of people are using generative AI just by using ChatGPT or asking for a joke or something like that. But there is actually a lot more that you can do with the technology itself, and I think this is what is currently interesting. And it's not magic. It's not something that will replace human, at least not tomorrow. But there is definitely something that is very useful, and that actually bolster the work we are doing and changing the work we are doing. So that's why I'm interested into it. And of course, there is some application with the Unprotect project. We actually created something at the beginning, which was the GPTs. The GPTs was, kind of an assistant specialized on specific topic, and we actually built one at the beginning. I think it was 2 years ago, when or last year actually, um, and it was basically an assistant based on the documentation of the Unprotect project, like all the techniques directly into it. So you could ask for specific techniques and generate a piece of code or something like that based on the Unprotect database. And we actually are working on something else on the background as well, but as I said, it takes a lot of time. But the interesting thing to keep in mind here, I believe, is that generative AI has a lot of potential to automate the work we are doing, but also to improve the work we are doing, such as, for example, triaging or reverse engineering. If we talk about it, like for example, and Yara rules. There is some interesting thing that you can do with generative AI and building a Yara rules and extracting some interesting information from a piece of sample, for example. So all that work is, I really believe in the technology because I can see some practical application in my work, and it's actually helping me on a daily basis. So that's why I'm just exploring and trying to give back to the community of how we can practically use generative AI as well. And I still believe the security industry is catching up with the technology because there is a lot of, I'm not sure if you are okay with me, but uh, I think in the security industry in general, there is a lot of skepticism. If you know what I mean, like when there is a new technology and the hype. And of course, the marketing discourse is always blurring a little bit more the potential of something. But really, for this kind of technology, I really think there is something. If you know how to apply it practically for specific use cases, then it's really really interesting to explore, and I think it's really helpful as well. I'm not sure. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I guess I adopted an approach. I blame many years in government work, both military and academia, and that I usually say, okay, something that's new that's coming my way. I'm not going to be. I'm generally not an early adopter. I'm like, I'm going to let the hype settle a little bit. I'm going to let the technology mature, and then I'll see, kind of where things stand as the dust settles. As I read more folks, maybe like you, that are willing to be on that cutting edge and say, yeah, this is really working, this is really cool, here's a practical thing, here's an ida pro plugin, or here's some you know model that I can apply and ingest samples, and it'll tell me actually interesting things about the sample. I could imagine like a basic triage tool
Yes.
integrated with like Unprotected, where I just give it the binary and it says, yeah, okay, like here's, and like Yara kind of does that, but maybe this could do it in a more intuitive, narrative type approach to help me better understand. Yara just says, yes, the sequence of bytes is in this binary. It's still up to me to go in there and kind of figure out exactly what that represents, what that means. So I'm still a little, unsure, because I'm
Mhm.
not right now in my current job role. I'm not working with it directly hands on. I'm looking to change that. And there's just nothing that's kind of come out and hit me in the face that says,
Yes.
like, this is the next thing I need in my reversing toolkit. I do find myself, using, I'm at Google, I use Gemini, and I use it for all kinds of things that I wasn't expecting. It's really, I mean, right now it's really replacing the search engine for me.
Yeah.
I've used some other tools, Notebook LM, for
Mhm.
example, doing
Yeah.
some research that I found to be really, really helpful, especially doing some really deep technical research to be able to throw, we started this podcast talking about manuals, throwing those manuals in and saying, okay, not just help me find this information, but saying this, here I'm going to present you with my understanding of the information. Am I correct? Now, of course, you have to be careful, because I do find that these models tend to lie a little
Yeah.
bit. So, like, I can't let it replace exactly my ability to research. But when I'm confident in what I'm asking it to verify, and it's just saying, yeah, you're pretty much right on, that can be really helpful. When I'm asking it to help me uncover, data, and especially from large technical manuals, it can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then throwing code at it, so far the experience I've had has been pretty good until I start throwing very obfuscated code. But I haven't really worked with models that I think are trained on that type of code, and so I'm really interested. I'm at and I'm at a vantage point because I work for a company that is obviously exploring this, and I would imagine that at some point here in the very near future, I'll be able to just start experimenting with it. But as you mentioned, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to learn it. I don't want to just become a consumer. I want to understand the technology and how to make it work for me. So, but I don't know. That's kind of a long and rambling answer. I think this is, without a doubt here to stay, and the
Yeah,
future is wild.
yeah,
The
absolutely
opportunities and the
exciting.
capabilities that I think are like on the horizon. That I always kind of temper that with job security a little bit, but I don't know, unless things just go crazy. I don't see how it's going to replace every reverse engineer and cybersecurity analyst on the globe, at least not in the foreseeable,
Yeah,
well, the near term anyway. I
yeah,
don't know if you had
you're
thoughts
right.
on that.
Mm. You're absolutely right. Like, I mean, it's not perfect, and there is still some work to do. But definitely for and as you mentioned as well, it will not replace us, at least not today, neither tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's just a great tool, and it's more like I think we can actually compare that to the when Google released the search engine in 2000, like around 2000. I mean, at the time, like most people were saying, like, oh, you don't need to learn anything because you have Google right now, so you don't need to go to the library. That's not true. You still need to learn, And when GPTs came out, like it was pretty much the same. Like, oh, right now you don't need to learn anything. You can go to ChatGPT and generate some content or do the work for you. That's not really true as well. You still need to do some work. It's a tool. It's not something that will replace us. It's something that will help us, but you need to understand what are the weaknesses and the strengths as well to be sure to know how to use this tool correctly. And that's the thing, I believe. And that's also why there is a lot of hype. It's because people are saying, wow, you can do a lot of things, it will replace us and all that stuff and everything. No, it's a tool. It's a powerful tool for sure, but there is still a lot of work to do. Maybe maybe I'm not in the AI field purely. I'm in the security field. So I'm also thinking really practically. So maybe in the AI field, they are believing that AI will replace us by 2030, but I don't know actually. So I'm more
Right.
working on how to use this technology for cybersecurity.
Yeah, right. And I think hopefully I made it clear I'm not in any particular role that has to deal directly with AI. So I'm just yeah, it's my viewpoint right now with the knowledge I have and the experience I have. Although so yeah, it is what it is at this point. Where is an area that you see? I mean, what is an area of cybersecurity and AI, LLMs, generative AI that you see is really exciting? That you really think we're on the cusp of, or you see will be just an absolute game changer in. I guess there's kind of two ways that I look at it. One would be maybe how organizations actually defend themselves, and then two, how we do work as as researchers or as malware analysts, as cybersecurity professionals, operating in a technical capacity.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I really believe there is a kind of something changing in the industry, and we already seeing it because we can see already a lot more AI security job related, and even for us, we are looking for people that have this kind of both skills, AI and security or malware analysis or threat intelligence, and so we are looking more to people capable of understanding what is AI and how you can use it for some specific thing in cybersecurity. So having this kind of skills and knowledge is really important for the future, I believe, and this is probably something that will grow up in the next few years because we need to have since there is more and more adoption of AI system in the world, we will need more people understanding this technology. That's the first thing. The second thing that I think will be probably a growing demand in the future will be everything which is AI incident response and threat intelligence related. Meaning, if tomorrow we have most of our companies around the world using generative AI for any kind of systems. How do you deal when there is an attack on this kind of system? So you need to understand how it works, and you need to understand how to respond to it as well. What is the incident response process for this kind of generative AI system? You know what I mean? So I think this is something that will grow up. Also, threat intelligence around generative AI will be something also probably on demand, because you need to understand how attackers will be able to use these tools or already use these tools. And you need to, there is actually a good project from the MITRE Atlas. They are actually classifying the TTPs, the LLM TTPs for attackers. So it's quite interesting. And I think this will be also something which will be on demand in the future. But generally, being aware about the technology itself and understand how you can apply it in cybersecurity will probably be the number one skill set on demand in the future. I may be wrong, but this is already a trend that I can see even at Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah. I'm I see the same trend, and I think it's going to be one of the most high demand skill sets to have as part of your cybersecurity repertoire as a as an individual, as a professional. And it's becoming one of those items that you see a lot of thought leaders in the industry, and C levels, and just different business owners saying this is the skill we need. We want to be able to apply these to our current cybersecurity operations. And I use the term cybersecurity there very loosely, just whatever it happens to be. If you're doing incident response, if you're doing penetration testing, if you have threat intelligence, fill in the blank there. I think it's definitely a great. It's going to be something that we're gonna it's going to be part of our workflow, no matter
Yes,
what role we play, I think, in an organization. So it's one of those
absolutely.
technologies that we'll have to all get on board, regardless of what we think of it. I was curious, and maybe this will then provide our segue here. But visual threat, I think visuals are something that I have underestimated in most of my reverse engineering or cybersecurity career. And I had a colleague at HP who I've actually got a book I bought because of him. It's like visual data representation, and it's nothing to do with cybersecurity, but using visuals that I still haven't read. So I don't know, because I didn't have a chance to look at the book. I'm just going off of the title, but I mean, is that a part of, or the thrust of what the book is trying to convey?
So basically, it's a concept. So there is actually a whole story behind the book itself.
Okay.
When I was working for McAfee and doing incident response and malware analysis, um, we used to have like a big, heavy report about the incident itself and what the malware were doing and so on, and with a lot of screenshots about assembly and everything. And it was not super, useful for the customer because it
Hmm.
was heavy to read. So I started to summarize my investigation and my malware analysis into a single page about what the malware were doing in a visual way with graphic and diagram and so on. And at the time, customers were really happy with that because they can reuse it internally, share that to the
Hmm.
people. And it was more easy to understand what the malware was doing in a single page rather than having like a 30-page report with all the assembly code and so on. So
Hmm.
we started to build more and more that for the customers because it was really something that they loved at the time. And then I moved. So I spent 3 years working in professional services, incident response for customers, and then I moved to the McAfee Labs 3 years later. And then at the time, I was working more about publishing blog posts and so on. So same, I
Hmm.
wanted to have this kind of diagram into my blog post because it was easy for the people to also to reshare online. When you have like a single page that explain everything, it's more easy for
Yeah.
people to reshare that and to reuse that also internally uh, for the management and everything. So each time I was writing a blog, I was adding this kind of diagram and so on. And then I started to do a little bit more of that because I realized that people really had interest into the visual representation about what malware is doing or what an investigation is it. And in 2020, started to think about, okay, maybe I always wanted to write a book, so I started to think about maybe I could write a book about the visual representation and so on. So I started to think about it and to work on that, and I came out with this concept, which is one page of text and one page of visual. So it's this is the concept, and basically the text explain you something about the current topic, and then the diagram and the visual on the side will augment what you just learned or complete what you just learned from the text. So this is the concept. Actually, there is one page of text, one page of visual, and then it's talking about threat intelligence. So I'm talking about, the basic like TTPs, the MITRE attack, the Unprotect Project as well, Yara,
Mm,
Sigma. I'm also talking about some of the investigation I did, such as the Shamoon attack in 2017, Shamoon V3. I talk about the NotPetya case because I was also on the front line during the incident in France.
mm.
Then I talk about different kind of malware as well. And the whole concept of the book is to have this kind of visual representation of something technical, which is augmented with the graphic and the representation. So yeah, that's the visual threat intelligence book.
And that is the name of the book, Visual
Yes,
Threat Intelligence, an illustrated guide for threat researchers. So I'm guessing you can go online, find that for sale wherever
yes, on
you find
Amazon.
books for sale. So Amazon would probably be a great resource. Yeah, that's just, I think that's such a great, like the whole origin and how it happened, and trying to display and describe things in more of a visual way, because we do tend to, because of the analysis itself is very textual based, and can I think it really could lend itself better to a visual representation. Do you find I assume then that, as the organizations like McAfee adopted the approach, or your approach, did others, did it become sort of the company wide template, and did you have anyone that was really resistant, or did folks tend to get into this more visual style and see the value and the benefits and the impact it was having?
I never had any resistance about that, because it's easy to understand, like, and most of the time I think I demonstrated the usefulness of visuals, especially during crisis time. I'm not sure if you remember for the XZ case this year when it came out. It was very complex to understand what was going on through the different analysis online. So when I started to work on it and to understand and to analyze the sample myself, even for me, actually, initially it's a tool for me to better understand my analysis. I put everything together in a graph, just to really understand, and because I think I'm working better when I can visualize the information. So for the XZ backdoor, what I did, I was reverse engineering the whole process and the sample itself and everything, and I started to, because it was very confusing at the time there was only the OSS analysis from Andres Freund, the guy who discovered the backdoor, and maybe one more, I think one from Ginvael, which was a researcher at Google as well, and he did like an analysis of the compiling process. But still, it was very complicated to understand if you are not like a reverser. If you were not a reverser, it was super complicated to understand. And even for me, which is a reverser, it was kind of complex to understand. So I had to analyze it myself, take some notes, and then I started to realize, okay, maybe I can put that into a diagram. So people, because on Twitter it started to be on fire, and people were saying a lot of things, and it was very confusing. So I imagined if you were working on the incident in your company, trying to understand all the pieces together from social network and so on were super complicated. So in a day, I just put everything together of my analysis into a single page with the diagram that explained the flow and everything, and I pushed that on Twitter, and it went viral. like everyone was using it, and even internally at Microsoft, the people were using it because it was super easy to understand rather than to dig through all the social network posts or the couple blog posts that was already aware at the time, online at the time. So it's just an example to show that I think during crisis time, if you are able to extract the most significant information in a visual way, then it's super useful for the people. And most of the time I get some people coming to me say, oh, you saved my life during this weekend, because thanks of that I was able to argue to my management that it was something very urgent to deal with, and all that stuff. So I never had a bad return about the diagram, thankfully. But yeah, so far it's I think the people really like it, and I'm also enjoying it. Like, I think it's a good way to share the analysis, and it's quite complex to put everything into a diagram, but it's also easier in the same time, rather than writing a full blog post about what a sample is doing.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely. I'm thinking through samples that I've gone through recently that have multiple steps of execution, and how a paragraph or two or three or whatever the case may be that would require to really lay out that whole chain and the relevant things, events, and sort of indicators along the way. How much easier it would be to have a diagram. Do you Couple of questions? And do you have a tool that you use to help build your diagrams?
Yeah,
Is there?
I get a lot of time this question. So initially, I was working with Word. I know it was not the best tool, but right now I'm working with Canva. Yeah, Canva is very useful. You have a bank of royalty-free icons or images as well. I'm also drawing some of them. So yeah, I think it's super useful.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Well, I still make all my YouTube thumbnails in PowerPoint, so that's the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
that's the level of like design, and that that's usually what stops me is my like I don't know, the part of my brain that is artistic just doesn't exist, or it died off a long time ago. I don't know what, but when I sit down, like I'm looking at one of your pages right now of a diagram that's discussing the traffic light protocol, and I can't comprehend how to create that. Yeah, and if you want an example, go to my YouTube channel. You'll see that's the product
they
of
are
my
great.
thumbnails.
I love them
That's the
actually.
best. Well, that is the best I can do, and I struggle so much creating them. So yeah, I can see
Yeah.
where having a tool, uh, what to help with that, would
It's
be
not
pretty.
easy. It's not easy
Yeah,
because you have a limited space, where you can put all the information, and sometimes yeah. So there is something that I hate in the security industries is sometimes people are making accessible something, but by doing that they are saying some false information. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think it's good to make accessible something, but I hate omitting something which is really important. So my
hmm,
goal when I build something like that is to not omit anything. Like, I want to have the most useful information. So sometimes you have to omit a little bit of stuff, but most
yeah.
of the time I don't want to build something that became wrong because I just wanted to make it accessible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I do, because I think I run into the same kind of dilemma when I'm creating educational material, or
Yeah.
anything that it's going to be I'm going to share for public consumption. I've always got in the back of my head, um, like what would be the most intense student or reader that I can encounter, and they're going to ask this, and
Yeah.
what about this, and what about that, and well, you missed this here. And it's not that I missed it, but it's just because I'm writing a blog post. I only have 1,000 words, or 5,000 words or whatever to convey all this information.
Yes.
Um, so it can be challenging to know
Absolutely.
when do you draw the line to say, okay, this isn't necessarily relevant, or it's not going to impact in a negative way the information I'm trying to convey through this training or through this diagram. Um, it can be tough. It can be really, really tough. But and especially when you're boiling it down to like one visual for something that can be very, very, very complex. So um,
Absolutely. For
Yeah, I
the
imagine you have a review process, colleagues or others to help sanity check the process a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes, but yeah, for when it's an outbreak, like most of the time, there no one has really the information yet. But yeah, for something a little bit more, bigger, for the book, like some of the infographic, I spent maybe 2 weeks on it, like just like every day I was coming back and changing something, or say, oh no, I need to remove that, or this information is already in the text part, so maybe I should remove it from the diagram and adding something else. So it's a whole process of maturing as well. So of course, when it's an outbreak of malware analysis and so on, you do not have all that time to think about it, but just putting all that information into a single page is like and when you are doing also a malware analysis, sometimes even when you are writing a blog, you do not put everything that you are doing into the blog, because some part of the malware are not really interesting for the reader. It's interesting for your analysis, but not really for the reader itself, because the reader will probably want to focus more about the indicator of compromise, the network connection, the registry key creation, something like that, But they probably don't want to have the interest about the encryption algorithm and how you reverse it. Maybe in some cases, if you are if you are a nerd like me and you, we want to know how the algorithm is working, and it's more for educational purpose. But for a really operational write-up for a company, most of the time they don't want to understand how the algorithm is working. They want to understand what kind of indicator of compromise came out from this analysis and take the necessary action. So sometimes you have to omit some information, but I try to not omit the most important information.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, and of course, there's just some things that require that technical depth that a full-on write-up
Yes.
requires, and
Yeah.
can certainly supplement and complement the infographics. But for sharing information in a way that's just quicker and easier, I think, to digest, and maybe even in some ways, it can convey impact a lot quicker
Yeah.
as well. So that's really neat. So the book would be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about visual threat intelligence and using visuals to help convey information. Interesting, really interesting area, because it is not something that I've ever come across in any of my formal education, and it's been a rare enough topic in just professional career over the years, that only a handful of folks I can point to and say that they really were discussing it or proponents of it, or utilizing it
Yes.
well within the field. And so that's really really cool. Do you see the LLMs being able to? I mean, do they have generative image generation and everything already? Are they at a point where they're able to do some of this work by? Because a lot of the practical applications I'm seeing right now is like textual based summaries of like raw. Take a sandbox for example. A textual representation of the underlying data. Well, I can kind of already do that myself. I can look at the network traffic. I can look at the process activity. I can look at some of the host activity. I can summarize that. This can make it quicker, though, of course. And then for someone who maybe is a little less technical, helps them a ton. Um, are they able to generate that into visuals, diagrams, representations?
So not
Are you,
not directly. Like, I mean, if you use Midjourney or DALI, you won't be able to generate something meaningful. But if you, there is some. I'm actually working on some stuff as well. But basically, if you are able to, probably not as a graphic, such as something which is an end drawing or something like that, at least not yet. But and I'm pretty sure there is something that exists in the internet, like a company that are doing something like that. I don't know any, but I'm pretty sure it already exists. But what you can do, for example, if you are using like, you can generate kind of flow, or I'm actually doing that for, I published something last year. What I did is something that I called the threat report summarization. So the goal of this work was to basically send an URL to my system, and it crawled the blog post, summarized everything, and passed that to another engine. My code is online, actually. I can share it with you if you want to try it. But basically, what I was doing is summarizing a threat report, and then generating a mind map of the key findings. And for doing that, I was using Mermaid flowchart, which is an open source code base for creating mind map and diagram as well. And what I was doing, so what I did, I used GPT for creating the Mermaid flowchart based on the summary of the threat report. And then I was able to create a mind map with the key finding of the report. So in a single view, you can understand what the report is talking about and the key finding from the report. So I can share it with you if you want to experiment. But this is one of the way you can use generative AI to create diagrams, or of course it's not the same as the one I'm creating manually because I'm putting a lot of different information, but it's quite interesting to see what you can do with it. And I'm pretty sure there is already something that exists online. I'm going to share you the notebook so
Yeah.
you can have a look if you want.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, if we don't edit this part out anyway, which I don't plan on it, I will put a link in the episode description. And is there any, if anyone just wants to search for it, what would they search for?
So they can actually go to my website, securitybreak.io,
Okay.
and there is everything on it. And yeah, and basically there is all my work and or most of my work, social network and everything.
Okay, got it. Yep, I see it. Okay, well, I'll make sure. So if you're listening in, hopefully I don't forget to post a link in the episode description and the notes below. If I do, or if you just don't want to scroll down and find them, securitybreak.io is the website, and you'll find it here under Jupyter Notebooks, it looks like. Okay, well, Thomas, awesome. It's been really great talking to you.
Thank you.
We've gone a little over an hour, so I'd say we've probably covered all of the necessary ground for the episode and everything we set out to chat about here. Thank you again for your time and all of your efforts contributing back to the community. I know when I was getting into the field, that's what made the difference for me is all of those that came before that were willing to share their knowledge, their expertise, and their time. So it means a ton. Hopefully we can do this again in the future, and then the podcast will still be running a year from now. For anyone who wants to get in touch with you, securitybreak.io. The book is Visual Threat Intelligence, an illustrated guide for threat researchers. So you can check that out on Amazon to get a really good idea of everything that we were just talking about here in the later part of the podcast. And who knows, maybe years from now we can come back and reflect upon this, and we'll be able to see how all the LLM AI, Gen AI, all that stuff has actually unfolded. So
Absolutely.
Any last words? I'll leave it to you.
Well, thank you very much, Josh, for the invitation. That was a great honor. I mean, I've been following you for a while, so thank you very much again. And it was a great discussion, and I'm looking forward to come back already.
And that's all for this episode of Behind the Binary. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us to reach new listeners. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.